So critical theory is all the rage right now. Everybody's talking about it. Well, not everybody, that's hyperbole. But a lot of people are talking about it. It was trending on Twitter today. I'm looking through the thread and I'm just seeing so much talk about it. And it's interesting because despite the fact that so many people are talking about it, it seems that not a lot of people know what it is. Let's discuss. Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. Now, before we even get further into what it is, I did a video on critical race theory and lightly touching the subject. And one of the things I said was I need to do more research. And it turns out, yeah, I really need to do more research because as I was referencing the 1619 project, that apparently is not critical race theory. So let's talk about what critical race theory actually is. And let's also talk about why people are upset. So I'll start with why people are upset. If there are people saying right now that the critical race theory is a belief and ideology that's teaching that white people are all bad, black people are all good, and white people are evil from the moment they're born, or from as young as I saw one person say that they're evil from like 4 years old up. So if there was an ideology, let me just stop. Let me just take a look at it from the other perspective. If somebody was saying, listen, there's this ideology that they want to teach in schools that teach black people are evil, or just the scourge of the earth, just lower than low, I would be concerned if they were going to teach something like that again. I would be concerned. But the question is, would I just take somebody's word for it that that's what wants to be taught? Now, based on historical the history of this country, I would think, okay, that's a possibility. But I would want to know more. And we could just take a look at some of the things they've said about somebody like Trump. They will take certain words of his and choose to portray it in a certain context. And you know what I did? I would still say, okay, he said what? Let me go see. Let me go see what he said because, well, number one, I know how the media is. So whether I liked Trump or not, I know how the media operates, and I know that the media definitely didn't like him. So that right there was my first clue. Maybe they're not being entirely forthcoming. Let me go see. In some cases, what they said was, okay, on point. In some cases, okay, no, that's not what he said. That's not what he meant. Y'all are trying to spin this, and y'all are engaging in propaganda. You see, because I was able to realize it's up to me to actually do the research on if something's actually happening. Like right now, they're saying that Joe Manchin is, they're painting him as this huge racist. I don't know whether he is or not, but they're painting him as a huge racist because he supports the filibuster. You know what I did look up? I did look up footage of both Joe Biden and Barack Obama defending the filibuster. So right then and there, I know they're trying to manipulate me. They're trying to use fears of racial animus and racial trauma. They're trying to use that to get me to support a certain policy. So now, let's take it back to where we're at with critical race theory. I get it. I get it if white people are worried, like, oh, wow, they're going to teach my kids that they're evil. They're going to teach my kids that all white people are evil. No, I don't want that. However, like I said, you have to stop and do the research and say, wait a minute, is this accurate? Am I being told the truth? So, and I think it's a bad idea to just blindly trust anybody. But you may trust some of your pundits, some of your media. But like I said, you have to use your brain. You have to use analysis. You have to stop and say, wait a minute. Let me take a look at this for myself. Maybe you're telling the truth, but I just want to trust but verify. And what I'm seeing is a lot of people aren't actually doing that. So a lot of people are saying, okay, critical race theory, this is what PragerU said critical race theory is. Oh my God, it's evil. This has to be stopped. And I'm like, okay, ask yourself, if you are opposed to critical race theory, if you don't like what critical race theory, ask yourself, one, what critical race theory is. Now you'll probably say, it's this belief, this ideology that, all white people are bad and all white people are racist. Okay. 2, ask yourself, when did you learn what critical race theory is? Try to remember. Is it in the past month, past week, past couple of days? So, if you learned it like recently, then you should be able to remember this. 3, who did you learn it from? Who did you learn critical race theory from? So, if you say, I learned critical race theory from Chris Rufo, or I learned critical race theory from James Lindsay, I'm going to say, wait a minute. Are they critical race theorists, or are they, opposed to critical race theory? Because right then and there, if your primary source of information of this thing is from somebody who is opposed to that thing, you have to ask yourself, are you actually getting accurate information? Like if they're talking about Trump, if it's CNN telling me about Trump, do I have to stop and say, wait a minute, this is CNN talking about Trump. Let me take this with a grain of salt and do some research. Because you got to realize, I know CNN doesn't like Trump. So if CNN doesn't like Trump, I know, okay, this might need some investigation. If you know, and it doesn't mean that they're wrong, I'm just saying, if they have a bias already, they may be not putting, there's certain things that they may leave out. Certain things that you may actually say, oh, wait a minute, that's not too bad. There may be aspects of critical race theory that you agree with. We don't know if we don't check it out. We don't know if we don't investigate. We don't know if we don't actually look for primary sources to find out what that thing is, what critical race theory is. So what I did was I did some research, started looking up, and found out that critical race theory was founded officially in the 80s, but it's like stemming from critical legal studies, because this was actually something I'd found out earlier about critical legal studies, that critical legal studies was like the precursor to critical race theory. And it's talking about how there's still, even with like race neutral laws, there's still racism being acted, like there's still racist effects being felt through the laws, even though the laws are on the face race neutral. And so my simplifying of that would be, okay, so it's comparing de facto versus de jure. So de jure is what's written. De facto is what's actually happening. But now I'm like, okay, so that actually has me interested. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This is something I actually want to look into now, because there's definitely reality that there's differences between what's written and what actually is enacted. And that's just a fact, because we know that the effects of the law are not necessarily going to be exactly what's written or what's intended. There are oftentimes effects of laws that weren't intended. Some cases weren't foreseen. Some cases they were foreseen. But some cases weren't foreseen and things happen. But there are certain proponents and like people that were at the forefront of crafting critical race theory, including Kimberly Crenshaw, Derek Bell, Richard Delgado. These are names of individuals that were involved in creating critical race theory. So my suggestion is, if you want to know what critical race theory is, you can start with them. Now, I'm presently waiting on a book of Kimberly Crenshaw's, so I can look deeper into exactly what she says. I want to see if there's areas that I agree with her and areas where I disagree with her, because she may be pointing out certain truths. Maybe, we don't know if we don't read it, and she may be proposing certain solutions that I may not like. So that's when it's time to say, if she's pointing out certain truths, then guess what? Then it would be a great time to propose alternative solutions that I actually would like and I think would actually be beneficial. And that's what it is. In terms of, if you just being opposed to something doesn't really serve a purpose, if that thing serves a purpose. If critical race theory is speaking to a need, a fear, a problem that exists, then just banning critical race theory or just ignoring critical race theory still doesn't solve the underlying problem. The question is, we can't ignore, well, the statement is, the point is, we can't ignore the problem. But what I did do was I looked up an easier source if you want to look at it. And I said, hey, if it's about critical legal studies, because these are basically lawyers, and it's a discipline that's dealt with in graduate studies. So this is something. There's a reason why most people don't know what critical race theory. It doesn't mean we're stupid. It means we just haven't been. We're not at that level in that discipline. We're not legal scholars. So that would make sense that as us not being legal scholars, we don't know what critical race theory is, because that's where it's taught, that's where it's handled, that's where it's dealt with. But I think what's key is acknowledging, oh, I don't know what critical race theory is. Let me find out. That doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't make you a stupid person. That doesn't make you less than. To just acknowledge, okay, I don't know what this thing is. Let me find out what it is. Let me find out, at least from a friendly source, what it is, because it's like me saying, okay, I'm going to find out what Christianity is by studying atheism, by talking to atheists. Am I going to get a clear picture of what Christianity is? Maybe, but maybe I would actually want to check with Christians and Christian literature to find out what Christianity is, as opposed to relying on a secondary, and not just a secondary, but a critical source on what Christianity is. Because it's going to be very likely, if I'm getting information about Christianity from a critical source, that they're not going to put it in its best light, that their bias may become at play in their description of what Christianity is. So, critical race theory, like I said, I one of the places I looked, and it's not that long. You can go to the American Bar Association. I think it's AmericanBarAssociation.org. I'll leave a link in the description below, and it has like a synopsis of what critical race theory is, and so you can have some idea from I guess a closer to a primary source, and considering that it's legal theory, legal part of legal studies. I think that's a great place to at least start. And then you can compare it to what, if you're watching PragerU, you could compare it to what people like James Lindsay, Chris Rufo are saying, and see if you think maybe they have missed something and there's something about it that you do like. Because one thing I'm seeing about critical race theory is it says that race isn't real. And there's a lot of people out there who are critical of critical race theory, but who seem to believe that race isn't real and it's just something that was just created socially, a social construct. So right then and there's a potential for agreement. And if you can see that, okay, wait a minute, this part I understand, it can actually foster a discussion. And because I see a potential for us to have a really good discussions and actually make progress if we deal with this with some intellectual honesty, instead of just being reactionary and listening to, pundits and media that's just trying to, get clicks or get views, get ad revenue. You know what I'm saying? So it's about time that we actually stop just reacting to what the media is trying to, move pieces, and actually let's do some discussion, let's do some study, let's do some introspection and some investigation. As always, if you like what I'm talking about, please hit the thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. If you don't like what I'm talking about, if you think I'm not reading anything that's critical race theory and I'm not watching your channel anymore, go ahead and give me the thumbs down and say why in the comment section. I'll address it either in the comment section or in a future video. I'll probably have to address it in the comment section, because if you're not going to watch me anymore, right? I'll see you next time.